and welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel. My guest this week is actress Sydney Penny. Now imagine getting your big screen debut alongside Clint Eastwood. Well, that's exactly what Sydney did in the Western Pale Rider. Love that movie. Talk about that, talk about working with Clint and getting the role. She also starred in one of the biggest miniseries of all time, The Thorn Birds, starring Richard Chamberlain back in 1983. And for those who don't remember what a miniseries is, back when it was just 3 networks, when the networks would have a big event that would last multiple nights, each part being 2 hours. Roots, The Thorn Birds, Winds of War, V, all very successful miniseries. Sydney went to star in the new Gidget, starring former guest Dean Butler. From there, she went to soap operas starring in Santa Barbara, All My Children, Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives. She got multiple nominations for Daytime Emmys because she's that good. She moved to North Carolina to open up a restaurant with her husband. She's doing that now. And she just wrote her very first novel, A Place to Stay. A very, very good read. I recommend it to everybody. Sydney was lovely, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with her. So, Sydney, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So, you wear so many hats. You're an actress, you're a producer, a mom, you own your own restaurant, and now I just found out you're an author as well.
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. So your novel, A Place to Stay, recently came out. So talk about that and like, is that something you always wanted to do, write a book?
I don't know that I did. Even when I started writing this one, I don't think I realized I was writing a book. I used to love to go to a coffee shop and just sit there and I think what I was doing was more like a character exploration, more of a maybe thought it would be a short story or maybe a treatment for a film script. And after I wrote 2 or 3 pages, I thought, hey, this is fun. And so I'd go back the next day and I wrote 2 or 3 more pages. And, you know, it ended up, I had about 15, 20 pages. And I said, this is really only a tiny sliver of the story. I feel like maybe I'm writing something bigger than a film treatment. And I enjoyed spending so much time with the characters and in this island, this fictitious island that I created, that I just couldn't wait to go back and spend time with them. But of course, then life gets in the way. I moved cross country. I had a baby. I moved to another city in a different house and did, different series and movies in the meantime. And so it would get put to the side and put to the side. And so it actually took me about 20 years to write the whole thing, which
Right.
I guess I'm hearing is not unusual for first
Right.
time authors and probably less unusual for accidental authors, which is sort of what I was.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, I just I just felt like they were sending me little mental postcards saying, come back to Aurelia Island, spend some time
Yeah.
with us.
Right. We're
It's
still
a fun
here. Yeah.
place. Yeah. So I got serious about it. And then I really started writing regularly. And I stopped being so critical of myself during the process. I was like, just put it down, just keep going, just keep going. And I feel like my momentum improved and my technique improved. So I learned a lot through the writing of it. Um, and besides just spending time with those guys there, I just really enjoy harvesting words and ideas and trying to convey them to people and find those little moments between moments that I think we hear and experience, but you never really talk about. I think authors have that sort of time
Right.
where you can think, well, what was I really thinking at that time, and break it down into and expand a small moment or a small thought. So I just enjoyed the process a lot.
Is this something that you would return to, or something that you would like adapt this novel into, like maybe like a script for a TV series, or maybe
Well,
even a
I'd
movie?
actually like to do both. I think that it would be a really fun series or limited series, and certainly a neat movie. But actually, I already am outlining the sequel to the
Okay.
novel. simply because I'm dying to get back there. I've got to see what these people are doing and how the island has changed. Um, and I'm just kind of excited to see what's going to come up with the next story.
Right. Yeah. How's the response been?
It's been really nice and it's fun. I feel like the reach is getting a little wider. Someone wrote to me and said that they were sitting next to someone on a plane coming back from Europe who was reading my book.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Does that make me an international, I won't say best selling, but an
Right.
international selling author?
Right. Exactly.
So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I know now you're living in Wilmington, North Carolina. You've been there for quite some time. So how did you end up there?
I actually ended up here by accident. Gosh, it seems like a lot of things happen to me that way.
Hmm.
Um, I got a phone call on like a Wednesday, checking my availability for a film that was set to start filming like the following Monday, and got the script. Absolutely loved it. Had never heard of Wilmington before. And by Friday, I think I was on a plane to North Carolina to start this movie. It was a romantic comedy that was originally called Go West. And then it was renamed by the distributor Enchanted before Enchanted.
Right.
And it was just a lovely romantic comedy that was written and directed and produced by someone who later became my very good friend, John Ward,
Right.
who unfortunately recently passed away.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. And um, so really it's because of him and this story that I ended up here. I came back and instantly, absolutely fell in love with the town. And then when I had to go back to New York for 3 years, for a 3-year contract again on all my children, I didn't want to live there full time, really. And I had a house full of stuff in LA, but I didn't want to be bi-coastal. So my husband and I decided to sell out in LA and buy a house here.
Okay.
So the trip up and down the coast, actually, it was easier to get from Manhattan to Wilmington than it would have been to drive to the Hamptons.
I can
So
believe that. Trust me.
pretty
Yeah.
crazy, right? Don't tell anybody that
Right.
because we have a lot of people here now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're officially full. We just hung out the sign like we're
Right.
full. We're done.
Exactly. No vacancies.
Uh, yeah, it's been growing,
Right.
which is good too. It brings a lot of great things, but it also brings a lot of traffic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm originally from New York City. I live in Connecticut now, so I know
Yeah,
all about traffic,
you
and
know all about it.
it's
Yeah.
very frustrating. You can go in your car and spend 2 hours and you're only going 5 miles.
That's so true.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes just from the Upper West down to
Yeah,
Chelsea will take that
exactly.
long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I first discovered you. I know everyone probably has their own story. Maybe it was the Thorn Birds, which we'll talk about in a sec. For me, it was Silver Spoons. I
Oh,
guest
that's
star.
awesome.
Yeah, I love the show. The
Fun.
theme song is one of the best, and I was always
Yeah.
jealous about the train inside.
Oh, yeah.
And you writ on it too. So how fun was that shoot for you?
It was truly so much fun. And I actually worked with Ricky Schroeder twice. And that was the first time we worked together. Or did I did a little movie with him around the same time. I can't remember. I think I did Silver Spoons and then did the movie, but it may have been the other way around.
Yeah.
He was actually my first on-screen kiss.
Okay.
And actually probably my actual first kiss because we were like, I think I was 11 and he was 12 or
Yeah.
something. But yeah, Silver Spoons was a hoot. And I learned a lot about, I think it was the first 3-camera comedy that
Okay.
I'd ever done. And so there were a lot of things to learn in a really short period of time. And just how they would constantly refine and rewrite the comedy and the jokes and so I got to really see like why they felt something worked and why it didn't work. And and learned to be very open to change, quick change, and
Yeah.
just like that facility that, of course, all the actors who were on that show all the time, as all the great sitcoms can do that. You know, they can just kind of, you know, go wherever the comedy leads. But it was just a really sweet experience. I had a great time.
Yeah. Was there ever a chance for you? I know you got the new Gidget a little bit later on, but was there ever like a chance you shot a pilot for a sitcom that you were gonna get? And was that something you really wanted to be on, like a sitcom, like a
Yeah,
kind of
you
be, on something
know,
that would last? Like,
the nobody ever thought I was funny.
okay,
So that kind of held me back, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. The problem is once the business learns you can cry, that's all they want you to do. That's it, you
right,
know. And it was probably the things that the most disappointing to me, because what I really like, there's three things I really like. One is Westerns,
okay,
because you're outside, you're with horses, and
yeah,
nobody's going to be, messing with your makeup and hair too much, which is
right, yeah,
the other is comedy, because my dad was a comedian. I grew up
right,
around comedy. I think in kind of a oblique way, and I enjoy it. I gravitate towards comedy, but I'm not really gotten to do very much. And then the third is what was that? Oh yeah, I love to play villains.
okay,
And I've really only gotten to do that once. And to me, it is by far 10 times more fun than playing, well, I would say the hero. I never really gotten to play a hero
yeah,
either, because
yeah,
I seem to always be, like I said, once they know you can cry,
yeah,
you're just like, you're a victim forever,
right,
everything you do.
yeah,
Um, and that gets old really, really, really
right.
fast.
Was the villain you're talking about, is that on 90210?
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I guess I was kind of a villain there too. She was a little haphazard though.
Yeah, kind of
I
caught in the
was
middle there.
actually she just, yeah. No, I was actually thinking about the wife he met online.
Okay.
She was just a downright, serial killer
Yeah.
level villain.
Right.
Um which was uh which was interesting, because I enjoy the psychology of it. Like, how do you get to this point? What makes you
Yeah.
this way? And the crew, I remember on that film, would just say, she's just crazy. She's just crazy. I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
No, misunderstood.
no, you can't just be crazy. That's not a thing. Like, you can't just play crazy.
Yeah.
Just make your eyes really big and foam at the mouth. Everything she did, Georgia was the character's name, was very logical. It was psychopathic. It was not nice, but it was logical.
Right.
And so if you just, to me, I just felt like, well, I just need to, uh, you know, carry this off. I just have a different sense of morality, but all of it makes sense.
Right.
Um, and that was that was what was so fun to me, because it's so much more chilling that way, because there was no out. It was just like, well, she's not crazy.
Yeah.
She's she's just going to do what she wants to do, which
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
just absolutely
Right.
terrifying.
Yeah. In her mind, she's absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned Westerns, and probably the biggest Western of the 80s was Pale Rider, starring
Yes,
Clint
one of them.
Eastwood, who
Yeah.
directed it, and you were fantastic in it. Michael Moriarty, who I love as an actor
Yeah.
too. He was had a big role in it. What was your experience working with Clint? How did you get the role? And did you know how to ride a horse prior to that?
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
I had been writing since I was like 3, just I grew up kind of the northwest corner of the San Fernando Valley,
Okay.
and it was still just orange groves and, melon patches. And so riding horses was very available, and I was a girl. You ride
Right.
horses. It's one of the things you do.
Yeah.
Um and so when Pimp Rider came up, I had a general idea of who Clint Eastwood was. I had frankly been too young to see most of his films.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but he was still such a major star, and I kind of knew him as Dirty Harry, so you
Right.
would see him, the whole go ahead, make my day.
Yeah.
Um, but when I met him, I went over to the lot at Warner Brothers where I had already spent a lot of time. I feel like I grew
Mhm.
up on that lot, so I felt very
Right.
comfortable there. And his office from El Paso is kind of tucked away, and just went in and hung out for a little while, and we talked about riding horses, and we talked about he just wanted to know what I was like
Yeah.
and what I enjoyed, which was pretty much the same as always. It's horses and
Mhm.
baseball and
Yeah. Right,
whatever.
exactly.
And we talked a little bit about the movie, but not in specifics. Really very little. And then that was kind of it,
Okay.
I think that he had a sense that perhaps I would be right for the role. Was Burt Reynolds actually who had recommended me.
Oh
Who
wow.
I didn't know Burt, but
Right.
he had seen me in Thorn Birds,
Okay.
obviously. And so when he and Clint did City Heat,
Mm.
they they were talking about Clint having this movie come up.
Yeah.
And I think I had auditioned for a movie to play Burt Reynolds' daughter, but I was actually many years too young at that time, but he recalled the audition. So it was, very, very flattering to me to have such a
Mhm.
lovely
Mhm.
recommendation.
Right.
So I guess I didn't make a complete fool of myself when I was, and Clint thought I was
Yeah.
okay. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you played the role great, and it is a fantastic movie. And Thornburg's also, which probably next to Roots is probably the biggest miniseries of all time.
Yeah, Roots and Winds of War. I think
Yes, another one.
that one
Yeah.
had come out at kind of the same time, and we were vying for,
Yeah.
the top rating slot.
Right.
I look back on it and I think what a different world it was
Yeah.
that we had three networks. That
Right.
was it. You had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that was it, kids. What are you watching tonight? You got three choices.
Exactly.
Unless you're just gonna watch PBS or something,
Yeah.
and
Lawrence
you
Welk or
watch
whatever.
Nova for hours.
Yeah.
Um, so when you think about the fact that we pulled in a 30 share or a 35 share,
Yeah.
you think of 1 in 3 people were watching TV and watching that show,
Right.
it's astounding to
Yeah.
me. That would be something like 100 million people now.
Right. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
bizarre.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really grateful to have gotten to be part of that project in particular because of the people I got to work with.
Yeah. Some amazing people.
Yeah, and I got to kind of see a slice of old Hollywood. Um, Again, that one was shot on the Warner Brothers lot, which is I just love that lot. It's
Right.
just feel like home to me. Um, and even the costume fittings, everything was done just like old Hollywood. Um, it was it was so spectacular. Just there's so many aspects of that shoot that had actually nothing to do with the shoot at all, but the preparation
Mhm.
and how they curled my hair. Everything
Mhm.
was done in such a amazing, artful manner. Um, and I got to work with Barbara Stanwyck and
Yeah.
Richard Chamberlain and Richard Kiley, who became a good friend, and um, Gene Simmons, who is just such a glorious person.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could go on and on about the cast and the crew and everyone. The Wolper Company. Wow, just truly amazing. And then I walk into the cast and crew screening, and who's there but Mancini.
Oh wow.
I mean, like it's
Yeah.
just and I was very young, but it wasn't mind blowing. The names weren't mind blowing to me. It was like spend 5 minutes with these people,
Right.
and they themselves. That's why they're stars.
Yeah.
I wasn't impressed because they were stars. I was impressed with who they were
Mm.
and then understood why. People wanted to
Yeah.
work with them and amplify their work because they were all spectacular.
Right. Now, who do you think would make a better like preacher slash priest? Would it be Clint Eastwood or be Richard Chamberlain?
Oh, wow. I gotta say, um, well, let's just compare the characters side
Yeah,
by side.
exactly.
Um, they're really kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. I think
Right.
in case of Richard Chamberlain's character from the Thorn Birds, I think maybe being a priest wasn't the right calling for him.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I would say for Clint Eastwood's character of preacher,
True.
um, I would say he walked the walk,
Yeah.
I think so in a lot of ways, I gotta say
Yeah.
Clint.
Yeah. You're probably right in that regard, which you wouldn't think of if you just compare the two
No,
actors, but the
you wouldn't.
characters, yeah.
But what I also love is for fans of Clint's work is to also think about High Plains Drifter and kind of consider Pale Rider as,
Mm,
not exactly a sequel to it, but
yeah.
the characters in parallel to each other um, kind of give you almost a full circle uh, feeling
Right.
about, you know, whatever that story may have been. He starts out with all those scars on
Mm,
his back and Pale
yeah.
Rider. And I think they were very smart to have done that, to have made you
Right.
kind of like try to fill in the blanks. How did
Yeah.
this get to this point? And so you understand it's this great atonement. He's, sharing his knowledge and his mind and his
Yeah.
body and soul with these helpless people. It's a strong story. I really do still appreciate it very much.
Yeah, absolutely. How is he as a director?
Oh, perfect. I mean, perfect.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I say that because like it wasn't about him. The great directors that I've worked with, they come in with a strong vision, but it's not about them. They give their cast and their crew all the tools they need to do whatever it is that they are being asked to do to the best of their ability. And then they let them do it.
Right.
And like a good shepherd, if they see something going the wrong way, then they'll, bring it back on track. And I think the great thing about Clint was he surrounded himself with such excellent people that there were so few problems.
Right.
And that's glorious.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And look at his, work after that. All the other movies he done are absolutely
Oh yeah.
fantastic as well.
Oh,
Yeah. So
unbelievable.
yeah,
Yeah.
the true living legend.
Well, he put in more than his 10,000 hours to get to that point.
Right. Exactly.
Put in
Yeah.
his 10 million hours.
Right. Yeah. I recently had Dean Butler on,
Ah,
and yeah, he could not sing your praises anymore. He just
oh,
thought
that's so.
you were like the most like grounded, well put together teen actor that he ever worked with.
Oh,
Uh,
goodness.
yeah, on the
That's
new
very
Gidget.
sweet of him.
Yeah. Do you think that's because of like having stage parents, or is it because you had the type of stage parents you did have?
Well, my folks were musical entertainers. And my dad had had some experience in the film business many, many years before. But film and music, they're similar. And I have to say they were very, very, very protective. So there were probably a lot of things that were going on, that I never knew about happily. I'm
Right.
still happy that I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Um, and there were probably a lot of roles that I wasn't considered for because of that. And that's just fine
Yeah.
with me too.
Right.
Yes, I do. I'm grateful that I came out pretty unscathed. And I think it was because they took it very seriously that it was my life first and my experience in my life. And then the work that was fun and rewarding for me. And then somewhere beyond that, I guess, is where the idea of career or, whatever else happened. So, yeah, I mean, I think any child that makes it to a certain point without having too much damage must have to be grateful to those who are
Hmm.
looking out for them.
Right. Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah. How was
that
the
was
new?
very sweet of Dean to say that. I've been looking through a lot of old Gidget pictures,
Right.
which I'm hoping to put up on my website if I ever get this sucker built. And oh, just so many memories of the fun that we had.
Yeah. It had to be fun just, shooting on the beach and everything like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a fun show. It definitely was. We talked about miniseries. Another thing that's forgotten now is syndication, and that show was in syndication.
Yeah, we started
Yeah.
off, I think we were the top rated syndicated show when we first started. And I've always been very disappointed that it hasn't found its way to one of the streaming services.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't even know if they know where the masters are to it
Okay.
anymore. But I wish somebody would find them. Somebody has done a beautiful job of cleaning up some of the episodes and putting them on YouTube. So I've
Yeah.
been trying to find the links to those and put them
Right.
in one place. Um, it's really fun to see it again because I
Yeah.
have some old videotapes, but they're all, like you had to stop it for the commercial, and so you know how it
Yeah,
tears and
exactly.
so it's
Yeah.
nice to see it looking the way it's supposed to.
Right. You kind of look back at those fashions and I'm like, ugh.
Oh
What?
gosh. The fluorescent and the Reeboks with two pairs of socks, and oh, my hair was so big. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Right. So from Gidget, you go to soap operas, and how did that kind of transition take place?
That was yeah. Well, that was an interesting time in my career because by the time I did Santa Barbara, I started on that show when I was 20. So it meant I'd been acting for 14 years.
Wow.
And it was a very strange time to try to become like a young adult ingenue because I had been in projects they kind of cemented me in time a little bit.
Right.
For some people, I was always going to be a 10-year-old. For some people, I was always going to be that girl on the beach. For others, I was always going to be, Megan on the horse.
Right.
And I remember reading for a role about that time. Um, and they didn't even want to see me. Actually, that's right. I didn't even get to read for it because they said, no, 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 she's just too old. She's like 35. I'm like 20.
Right.
They just
Yeah.
couldn't imagine that because Thorn Birds had just been around forever.
Yeah.
So surely,
Of course.
so it was kind of hard to overcome that in the mind of industry people who are new to the industry as well. They didn't know me from anybody. And also audiences, and tastes change. And then there were also not a lot of roles for people my age. It was odd because you think about it now, and there's this thirst for roles for young people. There's
Right.
Stranger Things, and I mean, you could name a list of a
Yeah.
million because they realize that people like that. But then it wasn't so much. It was sort of the 30 somethings, and then suddenly really young kids.
Right.
It so I was just kind of
Huh.
stuck in the middle. So there just simply weren't a lot of roles. I'd never wanted to do soaps. I never watched a soap. I didn't know anything about it, but I realized I need to reinvent myself. And so it was an opportunity to do that and to work every day and just keep acting because you'll get rusty if you don't. So that's kind of how it came about. And I did a lot of crying,
Yeah.
so much crying.
Right.
But Santa Barbara was fun because there was always a little edge of humor to it. And for me, that humor mostly came from Jack Wagner, who is absolutely one of the greatest comedians
Right.
and great musical performer. And one of these days, this man needs his own Broadway show. Like he needs to go
Yeah.
back to Broadway, and somebody's got to recognize how great and talented he is and put him where he should be, because I love Jack. And we just had a great time. Uh, he just, he made it a lot of fun in our storyline together, because here I was like,
Yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
crying. And he's always, flipping his cigar around and putting the wrong end in his mouth or whatever he's doing. So
Right.
we made quite a pair on that show.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a couple of his albums and he's great.
Yes.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, like bounced around on a lot. I mean, probably All My Children being Julia was probably, I guess, your most well-known role.
In the soaps, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I
It kind of hit. I had just one big storyline after the other, and the
right.
audiences responded to it really well.
Yeah. Was there ever
Yeah.
a time when you just like, what am I doing here with the storyline? But as
Oh,
an actress,
yes,
you got to
quite
do right.
often.
Yeah, I know
Quite
it's
often.
soaps
But
and all,
that's,
but yeah.
that's the nature of the
Yeah.
beast. Yeah, 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 yeah. Some are better than others, and
Right.
some fit better than others. Um, and that's, in a lot of ways, that's a form of adversity that I'm grateful for, because I had to figure out how to make something work. And that's your job
Right.
as an interpretive artist. You're like, somebody creates something here and says, here, take this and do something with it.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do, and I did it more gracefully at times than others. That's how
Right.
you learn too. You run up against your the limits of your skill and your imagination
Mhm.
and your creativity, and sometimes just your flat out energy, because it's exhausting.
Right.
The soaps are hard day in and day out. Um, but it was a good learning process.
Yeah.
And
So
that was the funny thing about being on a soap, is that I think by the time I got to All My Children, I was in my mid-20s. And like I said, I'd probably been working then for nearly 20 years.
yeah.
And people would say, oh, you're on a soap? Oh, I hear that's such a good training
Oh,
ground. A lot of people go on and even do TV or
right.
movies.
Yeah.
Like, do they?
Do they? Oh, I hope
Well,
I can
I'm
get there
looking
sometime.
forward to that.
Yeah, that'd be
You.
great. Yeah.
So
Right.
it was always a little bit like feeling like you kind of were, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was sometimes felt a little thankless.
Right.
And you'd have some people who said, oh my gosh, during a period of my life when I was spending a lot of time with my family member who was ill, or
Yeah.
I was taking care of my infant daughter, and I watched your show every day, and I just was so grateful to see you. And I'm like, okay, that's totally
Thank you.
worth it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brilliant. That's
Right.
why I was there.
Yeah. Because I mean, 5 days a week, it's there. You're in their living rooms every
Yeah,
day. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. My back in college, back in the 90s, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, big Days of Our Life fan, and one of my good friends who lived next door, Young and the Restless, and I was the only one who had a VCR in the dorm or a friend group, so
Hmm.
I would have to record both their shows, and it would like overlap because Days of Our Lives would be on at 1 o'clock, 1 to 2,
Oh.
and then the other one was 1:30 to 2:30. So me being the good friend slash boyfriend, I'm like, all right, half and half. So it would be like, 45 minutes one show for the other, because my wife would miss the last 15 minutes of days, but the next day it just recaps anyway. So you're not really
Yeah,
missing
so
much.
that's
Yeah. And then she would slowly make it like 15 minutes and 55, and I'm not going to argue with her, and it's like, I'm like, guys, just buy a VCR already, please. I mean, just they're cheap enough at this point. They're out going to be obsolete in another year or so. But and then they had to watch it in my room, so it's two
yeah.
hours right there. So I got hooked watching Days of Our Lives with
Oh
my
my
wife, and I know
goodness.
you ended up being on there for a little while
Yeah,
as
I
well.
wasn't on days for too long. I don't know. I think only did a few episodes of
Yeah,
that. I was on Bold and the Beautiful for a little while,
right.
on Sunset Beach for a little while.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. There's a few that I missed. I didn't, some of them went off the air before I had a chance
yeah,
to,
yeah.
invade.
And
But yeah,
unfortunately, there aren't too many left now.
no, there aren't. There
Yeah.
aren't. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you find out that like your character, like, Julia was going to be killed, like what was your reaction?
Well, it was an odd time on the show because they had been kind of doing renovations, let's say.
Right.
People were dying from all kinds of strange things, poisoned pancakes, and I don't know. So, we were all kind of aware that
Right.
anybody could end up on the chopping block at, at any point. And I don't know. I wish that perhaps it had been a more fitting death for Julia, although I don't know, maybe just crying herself to death would have
Yeah.
been appropriate. But yeah, it was, I saw where the show was, and I understood where they were trying to go. And part of, sorry, phone ringing, where they were trying to go was to California. And so in order to get there, they also had
Yeah.
to begin to pare the show down,
Right.
and Julia had become extraneous. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
On to the next show. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I've had characters disappear in other interesting ways. On Bold and the Beautiful, my character went upstairs at a party and just never came down
Came back.
again.
Yeah.
I'm still up there partying, I guess.
Exactly.
Took
Yeah.
a really long nap.
Right.
I
Yeah. Yeah. So now, you're running a restaurant with your husband. How did that come about?
don't know. I'm sitting here right now and I'm wondering that. Um, it's it came about because our son was young and we wanted to be sure that we could be here near him, obviously, and focused as close to home as we could be. And so it kind of was a natural extension for both of us. Rob um had taken cooking. He's a very good cook. And I could do all the front of the house,
Right.
shucking and jiving.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made sense, and we've enjoyed it. It's unfortunately in the middle of that, we got hit with COVID,
Right.
which was a complete bizarre experience. But made it through that just fine, and have made some lovely friends who I see nearly every day
Mm.
now. Um, it's a cool experience. It's something that probably won't go on for the rest of my life, I
Right.
imagine. But I think everybody needs to spend a little bit of time in the food service industry in particular, because it is absolutely a fascinating microcosm. And what you never know what's coming through that door.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just you just never know what they're gonna bring.
Yeah. And you kind of did it in reverse now, right? Waiting tables after you started in
Yeah,
movies and
I've
television.
always said that I am the only actress that never waited tables until I owned a restaurant.
Yeah.
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 And I wish I'd done it earlier. It's really fun.
Right.
I'm kind of jealous of our servers because they get all the tips.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Was this kind of motivation for your short movie, The Dishwasher?
Well, yes, actually, so the dishwasher is about a man who is a dishwasher of
Question.
all things
Yeah.
we imagine. Um, and he sees what goes on with his coworkers, and he sees the world that he is in, and understands he sees all the missing parts, but he is not seen. Like no one ever notices him.
Right.
And it was based on someone who worked for us. And I just thought it was fascinating how no one ever seemed to notice that he was there, because he was just very professional and unobtrusive, but how I just knew that he somehow knew everything that was going on. And so I thought, what if that person was somehow able to effect a positive change, like a kind of a fairy godfather
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of where the thought came from. And so it's a little rom-com. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah.
It combined a lot of elements that are very dear to me. and I had a really good time doing it.
Yeah. If the right role comes about, would you be willing to take it and start acting again?
I wonder what that would be. I keep waiting to see something that would be that I would be right for.
Right.
And of course it would be right for me. I don't know. Um, I might have to wait a long time, you know.
Yeah.
So far I'm not going anywhere, and
Right.
but I'm thinking, I'll probably be really useful when I'm like in my 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get to
Yeah.
play a comedic villain,
Yeah. There you go.
Finally,
Right. Exactly.
someone will cast me.
Yeah. Right. You come
Who rides a
downstairs.
horse? A
Right.
comedic villain
Yeah.
who rides a horse. That's what I
Right.
want.
Yeah. Or you come downstairs from that party and you're like 75 years old and
Sure,
ready to
it could
go.
happen.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, exactly. But Sydney, congrats on the novel. Can't wait
Thank you
to
so
read
much.
it. And
I
best of
hope
luck
you
with
enjoy it.
everything.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you. I appreciate you reaching out.
And a special thanks to Sydney for joining me today. Check out her website, sydneypenny.net. On X, she's Sydney_Penny. Instagram, Sid's Shots. And if you have a guest suggestion, you can hit me up on X, formerly Twitter, @thefirsnoel19, or like the page Rolling My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Show's on SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, basically wherever you can find a podcast. New episode comes out next week. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then.